Good morning. I want to thank everyone for joining us here today for our Facebook Live, our virtual town hall. It's a pleasure to be with you another week. And we're doing it a little bit early today because today is the 57th anniversary of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, originally conceived by A. Philip Randolph. This march is more famously known because of Dr. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, but it really brought together all the civil rights leaders of that era to protest for jobs and equality. And it's interesting that on this day, so many things have been happening in our nation surrounding racial justice and equality and equity in this country. And we're still seeing some of the battles being played out, whether it's in Kenosha, Wisconsin, or if it's in Louisville, Kentucky, wherever it may be. And today is a very special day, I think, because we have to keep in mind that although we commemorate things on anniversaries, the march continues, the march for jobs, the march for freedom, the march for equality continues. And I'm glad to see so many members of a new generation use their platforms, like our professional athletes all across this country and all the major sports, even college athletes who have decided to protest some of the injustices that are still plaguing this country. And I think it's heartening to know that through social media, through activism, through protests, that we are seeing so many of these communities come together and rally to push forward and to make America truly live up to its ideals and its promise. And so on this 57th anniversary, we will be commemorating that here in the state capitol, as many states could not travel to DC because of the COVID ban, are having their own protests at their state capitals across this country. And so I'll be leaving from our town hall to go to our state capitol, just a few blocks from City Hall, to bring some remarks and some thoughts about what it means today and where we go forward and how we can continue to push for the mission that so many of those leaders brought forward, and so many of them continue to encourage us and motivate us in our roles that we have right now. But before I get to our guest that we have today, and I'm pleased to have Charisse Stokes and Marcus Shaw, both of our new Techlab here in Montgomery. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves and give their backgrounds in just a little bit. I do have a few mayoral housekeeping notes that I want to pass on, and I'm going to try to be brief so we can get to the good stuff, which is what's happening in our tech scene here in Montgomery and how they're making it all come together. It really is exciting, and it really is encouraging for us to see. First, I'm going to start with our COVID update just very quickly. We are seeing our numbers decline. We are down over 60% from our peak in June, the first part of June, and we're also seeing our positive test rates come down. However, even as school has restarted, we have not seen the amount of testing that we'd like to see in the community. So we still want to encourage everyone not only to wear their masks and to practice social distancing, but we also want to encourage you to get tested. We think it's important that people know their status and that they know that they are not infected with COVID-19. We want to make sure we stay ahead of this, and that even as some of the extracurricular activities get going, from fall sports and football and other activities, that we are doing our part to stay healthy as a community. And so far, we've been doing pretty good where that's concerned. We just want to make sure we keep it up, because what the medical experts are sharing with us is that we're going to be in this phase for the rest of the year and probably through the first quarter of next year. So it may be the spring of next year before we really can exhale. Even if there is a vaccine that comes out and hits the market, it's going to be a while before people are certain how it's impacting various communities, various populations in those communities, as well as it's going to take some time for people to really decide whether or not they really trust the vaccine. And the medical experts are aware of this. So we have to keep in mind this is still a marathon, and we got a little bit of a way to go here, but we want to continue with some of the practices that we've had over these last few months that have gotten us to this point. Next, I want to talk about the census. We're running out of days to fill out our census and to make sure that we can increase our participation rate from 60%. We want to make sure that, as you see, my2020census.gov, that you go and you fill out the census form there. It's very important because each person that's counted is worth about $1,600 in federal funding over the next 10 years. And we only get a chance to do this every 10 years. So we really have to make sure that our programs that help our youth, our housing initiatives, our senior initiatives, our nutrition and health, public health initiatives are funded. And it comes down to where's the population? Where do people get counted? And that's how federal dollars are allocated. That's even how some state dollars are appropriated because it is based on the federal dollars allocated to certain areas. So we know that the Trump administration has cut back the census deadline. I'll be sending letters out to our congressional delegation to expand the deadline to ensure an accurate account. But we have less than 40 days, and we want to make sure we do our part to fill out the census and help our community where we can. I also want to let you know that we have a couple of events that are coming up this weekend. One is this football event, the Guardian Credit Union Kickoff Classic is going to be Saturday at 8 p.m. at Crampton Bowl. This was a football game I didn't think that we would be able to have, but we're having it. We're doing it socially distanced. There were only 3,500 seats that were sold. And ESPN has adopted the plan that our director of Parks and Recreation, Kay McCreary, has implemented to use at all of their football games this fall. So we're really excited about the opportunity to showcase Montgomery in this game between Central Arkansas and Austin Peay. So that should be very interesting, as it will be one of the first college football games of the year. We also are going to be addressing our community issues with a Montgomery Police Department violence awareness rally at Oak Park from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday. So we want to encourage you to come out there. We will have many of our stakeholders in law enforcement and community leaders speaking about what we can do to address some of the challenges that not only we're seeing here in Montgomery, but that people are seeing across this country with the surge in violence in various communities. So we want to make sure that we're offering hope and we're offering opportunity along with that. And so we encourage you to come out on tomorrow from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. with the Montgomery Police Department to address this issue. Lastly, before I get to our guests, I want to end on a positive note where we have been getting some attention for really the work that was done by our frontline team members, Victor, JaPhilip, and Quintarius, who saw a man who had fallen in his front yard and was unable to get up to help himself back to his home. And upon seeing him on their sanitation route, they got out, helped him up, and got him back in the home, and were able to place a call to get him additional medical treatment. And believe it or not, this is something that happens quite a bit with seniors. And, you know, our sanitation workers and members of the Montgomery Sanitation Department do an outstanding job. They have a dignity of work that they exhibit every day. And this one was just caught on camera, and someone showed it and shared it with us. And we wanted to make sure we shared it with the city. And now it's kind of gone from there to people just really being taken in a positive manner by the act of kindness by these men and by these professionals. So we're so proud of them, and we want to thank them for their work that they do every day, and certainly for this effort and this act of kindness. So with that being said, I want to now introduce the guest that we have with us today. I want to introduce Charisse Stokes, who's been heading up our initiatives here in so many ways, and has been truly an asset to this community to help us with our knowledge-based economy, and with helping us with our tech scene, and helping us identify and bring in entrepreneurs and putting Montgomery on the map. And I want to ask Charisse just to tell us a little bit about herself and what she's been doing with Tech MGM and others, and just to talk about where we are with this tech lab that's coming online. And after Charisse, we'll get to our friend Marcus Shaw from Chattanooga, who'll be telling us what he's going to be bringing to the table as well. Charisse, take it over.
Thank you, Mayor Reed. As you said, Charisse Stokes. I have been in Montgomery for a little over 20 years now, originally from Charleston, South Carolina, and went to Clemson, but came here as a second lieutenant in the Air Force. So I served 4 years active duty, and then had the opportunity to work for a small business for about 12, 15 years. So a lot of my background, be it an engineer by trade, but truly in information technology for the last almost 20 years, being in Montgomery, working for small businesses, and then actually starting my own small business a few years ago. So I've had an opportunity to work with the city, the county, and the chamber on their entire tech ecosystem, how we're looking at technology as a whole from an education and workforce development standpoint, what we're doing with our schools, K through 12, as well as our colleges and universities. But then how are we really developing that workforce and having a good solid pipeline of IT professionals that are in Montgomery? As we look at that, it's given us an opportunity to really also say, how do we attract businesses to Montgomery? How do we keep the missions for our Air Force stakeholders, as well as our other IT companies that are here in Montgomery? And then how do we attract others that may want to either grow and or start their business in Montgomery? And then finally, how we look at technology to really improve the whole quality of place and quality of life in Montgomery from a community development standpoint. So we've done a lot over the last 2 years with Tech MGM. And I will tell you, this week has been unlike any other, where we've had that opportunity to announce a brand new Montgomery Techlab that'll come into Montgomery for our startup community and for our entrepreneurs. But that's just one more step in building our entire innovation district.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. As we think about this, on Monday, we announced the launch of this tech accelerator that we believe will lead to an exponential amount of growth in the community. And you and Boyd Stevens and Rasheem McKinney have been really doing this work for so long to get us to this point. How would you say right now we are positioned as it relates to kind of where you thought we'd be? Are we in a solid position? Are we a little bit ahead of the curve, behind the curve? Tell me where we are in your mind.
So I would say we've definitely caught up a good bit. I think we were a little behind the curve at one time, where we would see other cities that were of similar size and had similar density of tech companies that were doing things. And we were kind of just looking at what they were doing and still waiting our turn. But I think we've come to that tipping point where we've said, let's look at all the assets that we have in Montgomery, the skill sets that we have, being able to leverage our military bases and those individuals. We have, quite frankly, thousands of IT professionals, as well as cybersecurity experts, and even software developers that reside here in Montgomery. And it's a matter of really being able to not just exploit what they do, but to really leverage the skills that they have and use those to spark our entrepreneurial community. And I think now it's putting us on a really good path towards that type of development, but it's also shining a very bright light on Montgomery. And the fact that we could do not only some of the things that we've done over the last 6 months, but it's opened the door for so much more.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks. With that being said, I want to bring on Marcus Shaw, who'll be working and has been working with Charisse in this effort to talk a little bit about his background, some of the work that he has done in Chattanooga, what he envisions doing here in Montgomery, and just kind of piggybacking on some of the statements that Charisse has made, kind of where we go, and what does this mean for the ecosystem here in Montgomery, and where does this put us? So Marcus, I'll let you take it over.
Marie, thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this discussion and helping really lift the innovation culture in Montgomery. I originally grew up in Maryland, right outside of Washington, D.C., have spent the past 25 years up and down the East Coast, and now reside in Chattanooga, where I lead the company lab, also called CoLab, which is really an innovation and entrepreneurship platform for the city of Chattanooga and the surrounding counties in Southeast Tennessee. What I've determined is really important about the work that we've done in Chattanooga, and what I think has piqued the interest of a number of other mid-sized cities, particularly cities in the South, is that over the past 10 years, the city of Chattanooga, through great leadership, both at the city and the county level, as well as strong culture of entrepreneurship and innovation, has built a really strong ecosystem of startups and technology companies that are helping lift economic development for the region. And, the Chamber has done an incredible job of supporting this renaissance of technology companies in Chattanooga and the Chattanooga region as well. What I've seen in Montgomery that's incredibly interesting and piggybacks off a lot of what we've seen in Chattanooga and other regions throughout the Southeast is the ability to leverage assets that are already in place. In the case of Chattanooga, we have the fastest internet in the country, and so that provides some really incredible opportunities for us to leverage high bandwidth, low latency technology, things like 3D printing and additive manufacturing, but also things like streaming. We've also got a history of freight and logistics and a history of consumer goods and a strong healthcare community. So we've got some assets there that we leverage. To Charisse's point, what I've noticed in working and talking to people in Montgomery, and Boyd Stevens and Rasheem McKinney are absolutely incredible community leaders that are in Montgomery, is that there is also a competitive advantage in Montgomery around IT systems and security, and a lot of that emanates from the relationship with the Air Force. And so we have looked at that as an opportunity to be a catalyst for technology there in Montgomery, but also think that it can create a halo effect for other non-military related technology companies that are looking to grow and develop in Montgomery as well. So super excited about that, and look forward to helping build a robust ecosystem that really leverages not the assets that other communities have, but the assets that Montgomery has.
No, I appreciate that. One of the things that I've read, and I wanted to bounce off of you and Charisse before we start taking some questions from various people that may be watching, is Brookings Institute recently identified STEM clusters around this country. And they talked about in particular the opportunity for STEM clusters where we have high level of minority talent and African-American talent in those clusters. And believe it or not, this area was considered one of those clusters. Aside from the startup space and some of the broader entrepreneurial opportunities that we hope and we believe will come from this, can you talk about kind of what that means to have access to the talent and to be in the space that has already been identified as a STEM cluster when so many tech companies are looking at diversity as an issue and are looking at ways to strengthen those pipelines?
Sure, I can speak to that. One of the most important things that we're seeing right now from a STEM perspective is really how many jobs will also be offered. And I think you've also seen in the state of Alabama where they're saying that the number one most highly sought after job over the next 3 years will be a software developer. And then you look at all of the career fields and the degree programs that we have here. So in Montgomery, you have 5 colleges and universities that all have IT degree programs that will give you that background in software development. So when you look at that workforce pipeline, it's a matter of how are we looking at it within K through 12? How are we following that into our colleges and universities? And I will tell you, even more importantly, how are we looking at it in our 2-year universities and the ability to actually align yourself with industry level certifications? That's one of the most important facets of that STEM cluster, is being able to align to those certifications that give you a qualified workforce where you can immediately compete for those jobs. So we've done a tremendous amount, I will tell you, in Montgomery, and then as well as statewide, and tracking to not only everything that's required in that, being able to put that more into K through 12, but even more to give you extracurricular programs and activities that are now better preparing all of your students to now compete for those jobs, but to have readily available the education to do that.
Fantastic. Marcus?
Yeah, to that point, I mean, I think Charisse hit dead on it. And when we think about the Montgomery Techlab and the mission to really advance innovation and entrepreneurship through education, acceleration, and incubation, the point that you're talking about with the Brookings study highlights the value of education, right? This is not just about companies. This is really about people. And I think that there's, tremendous traction at the K through 12 level, the community college and two-year college, as well as the four-year institution level. We've seen that work in Chattanooga with great collaboration between the superintendent, the president of the community college, and the president of the four-year college. And so I think, with the density of schools that you have there, 5 four-year universities in the region, Montgomery is prepared for incredible success around building that workforce talent.
Great. Now, for someone who's not an engineer, for someone who's not in the IT space right now, why should they care about this accelerator? Why should they see any opportunity in terms of what this could mean for not only the city but this region?
Well, I'll start there, and Charisse, I'm sure, has some comments on this. And I'll lean a little bit on the experience in Chattanooga as well. Tech is important, right? Because to your point, most of the job growth that's going to come in terms of wage increases, in the next 5 to 10 years, is going to come from tech-enabled jobs. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody is a software developer, but it means they're adjacent to the development of software, right? Either you're going to be part of this system, or unfortunately, you may be replaced by part of this system. And so I think, when we were growing up, it was the 3 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic. R is also a programming language, and I kind of think of it as the 4th R now, right? That we've got to be, at least cognizant that that's part of the economy. But for other folks that are not in the tech business, there's basic human things that we still need to do. We still need a place to eat. We still need a place to live, and we still want great products and services that are going to allow us to do that. So, we're still going to need great restaurants in Montgomery. We still, have great restaurants in Chattanooga, and we support those businesses as well. But when you have people that are more informed about how to grow a successful business, whether that's a tech company or a restaurant, and they're all living and working in the same place, that truly lifts the economic power of the community.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, Marcus, I think one thing that you've seen probably over the last few months, even with our response to COVID, where you have a number of traditional businesses that realized that they needed a tech component to continue doing business. So while you may not have historically been a tech company, you've realized that you should and can leverage technology to keep your business afloat. So now you have, even with the Techlab, it's an opportunity for those hardcore technical folks that maybe you're engineering back end to now help to solve problems for someone who isn't technical and may not have thought as their business as a whole of having that tech component or needed to engage from a technical standpoint. So I think Boyd always says this quite often, that every company out there, every business is a tech business.
That's right.
It's just the age in which we're in right now. And I think this now opens the door for so many people to realize that even more.
Very well. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Mark.
Add on to that, Charisse. I mean, we saw that firsthand. Companies that were prepared with a component on their website that allowed people to order food on the website and enabled people to do takeout did significantly better during those first few months of kind of the Corona crisis than companies that didn't have a method to reach their customers outside of walking into their restaurant.
Great. I'm excited about this because, again, I think it allows us to fully participate in the knowledge-based economy. And one of the books that I encouraged our business leaders to read last year was The New Geography of Jobs. And in that book, Aaron Reddy talks about the multiplier effect of the knowledge-based economy. And I believe it's for every tech job, it creates at least 5 other jobs off of that. So when we think about our ability to be a startup scene, to have a startup scene here in Montgomery, and to fully maximize what's going on at Maxwell Gunter Air Force Base, I think partnering with Tuskegee University and its rich tradition of engineers and putting out engineers, along with the Tier 1 research university like Auburn, really allows us the potential to leverage the assets along with what you all are bringing, and really pitch something totally different than what we've been doing economically here in Montgomery. And certainly having ASU and Huntington and Faulkner, AUM and Troy Montgomery here supplements that talent, because I think if we can keep some of that young talent here, we can create the energy, and as Charisse said, build that ecosystem here, then we can start to change the future here economically of where we go. And that's important for us as a city. It's important to us as a community. And it's important to us for our viability to attract other jobs and to attract other services and even other amenities. A lot of people ask, well, hey, why don't we have this restaurant? Or why don't we have this type of place where I can take my family or the kids can go? And a lot of that comes down to income. It comes down to what's the disposable income that we have here, and what are the type of people that we have here in this city. And so this, to me, is more than worth its weight in gold. It's more than worth the investment that the city, the county, the Industrial Development Board, getting involved, our private sector partners, Alabama Power and others, getting involved in this. And I think having talented, experienced leaders like you all that kind of know where the landmines are will help us as well. And Marcus, certainly you've been at the forefront of what's happened in Chattanooga, and there are things that certainly we may be able to do. There may be some things that we can't, but maybe there's some other things that Chattanooga hasn't done that we can then do because of the military presence that we have here and some of the other assets with state government and so forth. So I'm excited to really have you all on as partners. And when I think about this Montgomery Tech Lab and this tech accelerator that we have, I'm glad that we're in the conversation now. And Marcus, I'm going to reach out to our friends at, is it Rise of the Rest?
Yeah, that's right.
So we got to reach out to David. We got to reach out to David Hall and that group and tell them, next time they're on that cross-country tour, that Montgomery's a place that they have to come and see and stop through, so we can continue to build that synergy that you all will be bringing in this endeavor. So I want to thank you all so much. I'm going to have to shorten this virtual town hall so we can get up here to the state capitol. There may be some questions that we'll shoot out to you, and what we don't, we'll follow up with next week. But I just want to thank you all for joining us early, more so than we normally would do this on a Friday. And I look forward to coming back and talking about not only this topic, but some other initiatives that you all have been kind of putting out there in the atmosphere for us to really view Montgomery in a different light and really think about how Montgomery is going to proceed going forward in this new environment. So thank you all so much for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir.